welcome to this deep dive.
Uh,
We're going to be exploring the core concepts from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And you've given us not just the book itself, but commentary from the author's son.
right.
That's a pretty cool perspective to have, don't you think? It's like getting a multi-generational take on these timeless principles.
Yeah, it really is. And, speaking of timeless, did you know that the 7 Habits is incredibly popular in Brazil?
Really?
Yeah, it's like this global phenomenon.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to sift through all this material and extract the most powerful principles that you can use in your own life. Whether it's personal growth or relationships or even work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, we're going to end this deep dive with a bit of a twist, a challenge specifically for you based on the 7 habits. But first, let's dive right into the heart of the matter. The author starts by taking a sling at what he calls personality ethics. This idea that success is all about outward behavior and techniques. He argues that it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Right. He suggests that it's really about our paradigms. The deeply held beliefs and assumptions that we have about the world that shape our perceptions and ultimately our behavior.
It's like that time you told me about how you used to think asking for help was a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah.
That was a paradigm that you were operating under, right?
Absolutely.
And it actually held you back from really collaborating effectively with your team.
100%. It wasn't until I shifted that paradigm to see asking for help as a strength, a way to actually leverage collective intelligence, that my leadership style really evolved.
It's amazing how these aha moments, these paradigm shifts, can completely change your approach.
Totally.
And speaking of aha moments, the author tells a story about a man on a subway who is totally oblivious to his kids going bonkers around him. He's so engrossed in a book,
Right.
it takes someone on the subway to actually point it out to him for him to finally see what's happening. And that shift in perception, that change in his paradigm, changes everything.
Absolutely.
It just highlights how we can get so stuck in our own heads, in our own paradigms.
Yes.
That we just miss what's right in front of us.
Yeah, and principles like these that he outlines in the 7 Habits, they're like natural laws. So aligning our paradigms with them is just crucial for effectiveness.
So I want you to think about this for a second.
Okay.
What maps are you using in your life right now? Are they leading you in the right direction? Are there any maps that you're using that might be leading you in the wrong direction? Maybe outdated beliefs about work-life balance or what it means to be successful?
That's a really thought-provoking question. It leads us directly into habit 1, be proactive.
So the author uses this really powerful example of proactivity. Viktor Frankl's experience in a Nazi concentration camp. Even in such horrific circumstances, Frankl recognized his power to choose his response.
Yeah.
He chose to focus on what he could control, his thoughts, his attitude, and found meaning even in the midst of suffering. I mean, isn't that incredible?
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that proactivity isn't just about taking initiative or being a go-getter. It's a deeper understanding that we always have the power to choose our response, regardless of our circumstances. We are not simply products of our environment. We have the capacity to shape our own reality.
And he talks about these circles of concern and influence. So the circle of concern, all the things we worry about, and the circle of influence, what we can actually have an impact on.
Right.
And the idea is that reactive people, they tend to focus their energy on that circle of concern, lamenting all the things they can't change.
Yeah.
But proactive people, they zero in on their circle of influence. They ask, what can I do to make a difference? And by focusing on what they can control, they actually expand their influence over time.
Exactly.
So I want you to think about your current work situation. Which circle are you spending most of your energy in? Are you getting bogged down by things outside of your control? Or are you proactively seeking ways to make a positive impact within your sphere of influence?
That's a great question to consider. And it actually sets the stage perfectly for habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
So this habit is all about defining your mission and values. And I know this is something that you've been thinking about lately, especially with the changes that are happening in your career.
Right.
And it might sound a bit morbid, but the author actually asks us to visualize our own funeral.
Oh, wow.
What would people say about you?
Yeah.
What kind of legacy would you want to leave behind?
It's a powerful exercise. It might sound a little strange at first, but it really forces you to confront what truly matters to you. What do you want to be remembered for? And by identifying these core values, we create a roadmap for our lives. And it reminds me of something that you mentioned in your notes. You mentioned that you're feeling a bit lost with your career path.
Hmm.
Maybe this visualization exercise could help you gain some clarity.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
You could even try writing your own eulogy. I know it sounds a little dark, but trust me, it can be incredibly insightful.
Yeah, I'm willing to give it a try. And it actually connects perfectly with the two creations principle.
Okay.
The idea that everything is created twice, first mentally, then physically.
Right.
Just like a builder needs a blueprint before they can construct a house, we need a clear vision for our lives before we can start building toward it.
Exactly. Speaking of blueprints, the author talks about checking into a hotel and having this exceptional customer service experience. He noticed that everyone, from the bellhop to the housekeepers, embodied this value of unconditional personal service.
Wow.
It wasn't just a slogan. It was woven into the very fabric of the organization.
And it was their guiding principle, your mission statement,
Yeah.
and it made all the difference in their customer experience.
I'm curious, thinking about your own work, have you ever encountered a company or organization that had such a strong, clearly defined mission?
Now that you mention it, I remember working with this small startup a few years ago that was incredibly passionate about sustainability. And it wasn't just a marketing ploy. It was deeply embedded in their company culture, their product development, everything they did.
I bet that had a huge impact on their employees, their customers.
Absolutely. It created this sense of purpose and alignment that was palpable. Everyone was rowing in the same direction, so to speak.
It brings us to a really important point that the author makes about leadership. He argues that effective management is useless without a clear vision. He uses this rather striking analogy, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Ouch. Yeah, but it gets the point across, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah. It highlights how important it is to have that North Star, that clear sense of direction, before we even think about efficiency or productivity.
Otherwise, we might just be really good at doing the wrong things. And that leads us seamlessly into habit 3, which is all about aligning our actions with our priorities. Put first things first. And this next habit, this ties in perfectly with, I know, your desire for more structure without feeling overwhelmed. It's all about time management, but not in the way you might think.
Right. Not about squeezing in as many tasks as possible, but really focusing on what matters.
Yeah.
And the time management matrix, brilliant tool for doing that.
I'm actually a huge fan of the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's so simple, yet so insightful.
Absolutely.
It divides our tasks into these 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
So urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important. And then finally, like the time wasters,
Yeah.
neither urgent nor important.
Right. And the problem is most of us, we get stuck reacting to the tyranny of the urgent, that quadrant 1,
Yes.
constantly fighting fires, meeting deadlines.
Yeah. It's like we're on this treadmill, we're running as fast as we can, but we're not really getting anywhere.
Exactly.
But the key to effectiveness, as the author points out, lies in shifting our focus to quadrant 2.
Yes.
The activities that are important but not urgent.
Right.
Things like long-term planning or relationship building, personal development.
Yes.
The things that contribute to our overall well-being and help us achieve those bigger goals.
It's about being proactive rather than reactive. And you know what? It's not just about work either. Thinking about your personal life, what quadrant 2 activities could you focus on more? Maybe it's that photography course you've been wanting to take, or spending quality time with loved ones.
Ooh, those are great examples.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I've been meaning to dedicate more time to writing. Something that brings me joy, but it often gets pushed aside by more urgent tasks.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the author, he makes this compelling case for weekly planning as the key to staying in that quadrant 2.
Absolutely. It's about setting aside time each week to identify your most important roles and then scheduling time for the activities that will move you towards them.
It's like carving out time for your future self. So instead of always being at the mercy of the urgent, you're proactively designing your life.
Exactly. And when you're clear about your own priorities, it really sets the stage for effective collaboration with others. Which brings us to habit 4, think win-win.
So this habit is all about seeking those mutually beneficial solutions in all our interactions. It's about moving away from that scarcity mindset of I win, you lose,
Yeah.
and embracing that abundance mentality of there's enough for everyone.
And I think this is especially relevant today, in this competitive world where we're often conditioned to see things as a zero-sum game. One person's success comes at the expense of another.
Right. But the author challenges us to look for those win-win solutions where everyone feels like they've gained something.
Absolutely.
And it's not about being a pushover
Right.
or always compromising. It's about having the courage to advocate for your own needs, but also being considerate of the needs of others.
He tells the story about delegating lawn care to his son.
Okay.
Initially, he was really tempted to micromanage every detail, but then he realized, it's important to give his son ownership of the task. It wasn't just about getting the lawn mowed perfectly. It was about teaching his son responsibility and empowering him to succeed.
I love that. That's such a great example of the difference between gopher delegation and stewardship delegation. It's
Yes.
gopher delegation. You're giving orders,
Right.
controlling every step.
Yes.
But stewardship delegation, it's about defining the desired outcome, providing clear expectations, and then trusting the other person to get the job done.
Thinking about your own leadership style, do you tend to lean more towards gopher delegation or stewardship delegation? Or maybe a bit of both, depending on the situation.
Oh, I definitely have moments where I fall into the micromanaging trap.
Yeah, I think we all do.
It's something I'm actively working on. But, that story really highlights how empowering others, not only is it beneficial for them, but it frees us up to focus on those higher level tasks.
Exactly. And it fosters trust and collaboration. And speaking of understanding others, that leads us to habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Ooh, this is such a crucial one, especially in today's world. Everyone seems to be talking, but very few are truly listening.
The author, he makes this brilliant analogy. Imagine going to an eye doctor who prescribes you glasses without even bothering to understand your vision. It would be absurd, right?
Fully.
But we do this all the time in our conversations. We jump to conclusions, we offer unsolicited advice, or we try to impose our own solutions without really grasping the other person's needs or concerns.
It's like we're so focused on broadcasting our own message that we forget to tune in to the other person's frequency.
He even shares this funny story about repeatedly calling the doctor about his daughter's medication, thinking he had clearly communicated the situation. But it turns out he had been so focused on getting his point across that he had failed to truly listen to the doctor's perspective.
It's a humbling reminder that communication is a two-way street. We can't truly connect with others unless we're willing to set aside our own agenda and genuinely listen to what they have to say. It's about cultivating that curiosity, that genuine desire to step into their shoes and see the world through their eyes.
And this goes beyond just hearing words. It's about listening with empathy, trying to understand the other person's feelings and their underlying needs. It's about asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what we've heard, and validating their emotions.
And these aren't just feel-good techniques. They're incredibly powerful tools for building trust, resolving conflicts, and fostering those deeper connections, especially in the workplace, where clear communication is essential for success.
Absolutely.
Thinking about your own communication style, are you more of a talker or a listener?
I'd say I tend to be more of a listener, but I'm also aware that I sometimes hold back from expressing my own opinions for fear of rocking the boat.
That's interesting. Maybe this habit challenges you to find that balance between understanding others and confidently articulating your own perspective. Because remember, seeking first to understand doesn't mean you have to agree. It simply means you're making a sincere effort to see the world through the other person's eyes.
And once we've laid that groundwork of understanding, then we can move to habit 6, synergize.
Oh, synergy. This is where things start to get really exciting. It's like taking all the previous habits we've discussed and amplifying them to the next level.
Right.
We've shifted our paradigms, we've clarified our priorities, we've learned to think win-win, we've honed our listening skills. Now we're ready to unlock the true power of creative collaboration.
The author describes synergy as the highest activity in life, where 1 + 1 = 3, or even more. It's the recognition that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And by working together, leveraging our individual strengths and differences, we can create something truly extraordinary.
He describes this transformative experience teaching a class where the students went beyond just respecting each other's opinions. They opened up, shared their vulnerabilities, and in doing so, created this unique and lasting bond. It wasn't just about brainstorming ideas. It was about connecting on this deeper human level.
Right.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And in today's complex world, collaboration isn't just a nice to have, it's essential.
Absolutely. And the author, he outlines 3 levels of communication. Defensive, respectful, and synergistic. Defensive communication is all about protecting our egos and proving ourselves right.
Right.
Respectful communication is polite and civil, but it doesn't necessarily lead to those groundbreaking solutions.
Right. But synergistic communication, that's where the magic happens. It's
Hmm.
about valuing differences, being open to new possibilities, and creating a third alternative that transcends those limitations of our individual perspectives.
The author uses this great example of a husband and wife trying to plan a vacation. He wants to go on this fishing trip with the kids.
Okay.
She wants a relaxing getaway.
Sounds familiar, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I could definitely relate to that. But instead of getting stuck in a tug of war, they leverage their understanding of each other's needs and desires to find a win-win solution. They realize that what they both crave is quality time as a family. So they end up planning this trip that incorporates both adventure and relaxation.
Right.
And it's not about compromise, where each
Mhm.
person gives up something to reach an agreement.
Right.
It's about collaborating to create something new and better than either of them could have come up with on their own. And, synergy isn't limited to big projects or group settings. It can happen in any interaction, even a simple conversation, when both people are genuinely open to understanding and learning from each other.
Absolutely. It's about bringing our best selves to the table, embracing those different perspectives, and being willing to let go of our attachment to being right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the most innovative solutions emerge from those unexpected collisions of ideas.
And finally, we arrive at habit 7, sharpen the saw. I have a feeling this one will really resonate with you, especially given your focus on personal growth and continuous learning.
It's all about investing in yourself, not just professionally, but really in all aspects of your life. And the author breaks it down into 4 dimensions of renewal: physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual.
Okay.
Think of it as this holistic approach to self-care.
So for the physical dimension, we're talking about taking care of your body, things like exercise, nutrition, getting enough sleep, making sure your physical engine is running smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. And then for the mental dimension, it's about expanding your knowledge, challenging your mind, staying curious. Reading, learning new skills, engaging in those thought-provoking conversations. All those contribute to mental sharpness.
And then for the social emotional dimension, this is about building those strong relationships, developing empathy, contributing to your community. It's about nurturing those connections that bring us joy and a sense of belonging.
Right. And then finally, the spiritual dimension. This involves connecting with your inner self, clarifying your values, finding meaning and purpose in life. And this can involve practices like meditation, spending time in nature, or engaging in activities that nourish your soul.
It's interesting because the author, he tells this story about a friend who pushed himself to the limit, lifting weights.
Yeah.
He was so focused on achieving his fitness goals that he ended up just exhausted and burnt out.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that sharpening the saw isn't about those sporadic bursts of effort or pushing ourselves to the point of exhaustion. It's about those consistent daily investments in our well-being, creating those habits and routines that nourish us and sustain us over the long term.
It's like the difference between sprinting and running a marathon.
Right.
You need to pace yourself.
Exactly.
Find that sustainable rhythm and make sure that we're taking care of all aspects of ourselves. And I think this is particularly relevant for you right now, considering, you're going through this period of transition and change.
Absolutely. It's easy to neglect self-care when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, but it's precisely during those times that it's most important. It's about finding even those small pockets of time to recharge and renew so we can show up as our best selves, both personally and professionally.
So thinking about these 4 dimensions of renewal, what are some saws that need sharpening in your life right now? Maybe it's committing to a regular exercise routine or carving out time for reading, or maybe exploring that meditation app you've been curious about.
Those are great suggestions. And remember, even those small, consistent actions can have a huge impact over time. It's about finding those activities that bring you joy and make you feel alive.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into the 7 habits, it's really striking how these principles, they're not just these isolated concepts.
Right.
They're interconnected. They build upon each other.
It's a spiral of continuous improvement.
Exactly. By mastering each habit, we create this foundation for greater effectiveness in all areas of our lives.
It's a journey, not a destination. And like any journey, there will be those twists and turns, challenges and triumphs along the way. But these 7 habits, they provide a roadmap. They're like a set of guiding principles to help us navigate the complexities of life and reach our full potential.
And speaking of journeys, remember those 2 thought-provoking questions that the author poses. These are great for really bringing this all together and creating a personal action plan.
First, reflecting on all 7 habits. What one thing could you start doing consistently that would make a significant positive difference in your personal life?
And second, what one thing could you do in your professional life that would have the same impact?
We encourage you to really sit with those questions, journal about them, and most importantly, take action. Because knowledge without application is like a seed that never gets planted.
It's been such a pleasure diving into these powerful principles with you today. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to put these habits into practice.
And remember, the journey of self-improvement is ongoing. It's about making those small, consistent steps each day, sharpening our saws, and striving to become the best versions of ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.